In this video lesson, we'll look at the actions of the Second Continental Congress after the Battle of Lexington and Concord. In May of 1775, following Lexington and Concord, the Second Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia, and all delegates from 13 colonies were there. They drafted a new petition seeking a redress of grievances and adopted measures to continue armed resistance, raise money, and create an army and a navy. Most delegates to the new Congress were not prepared to break with England, nor were the colonies prepared for war against the most powerful nation on earth. Congress chooses George Washington from Virginia to command the Continental Army, which was a decision also meant to signal colonial solidarity. Next, Congress drafted a declaration on the causes and necessity of taking up arms, first written by Thomas Jefferson, who was very radical, and then rewritten by John Dickinson, who was more moderate. Congress authorized the issuance of 2 million Continental dollars, which were dollars that were not backed by gold or silver, to pay for the military buildup. In summary, the new Congress had assumed both the major functions of a legitimate government, militarily and financially, without any legal basis for its authority. In May of 1775, an American force led by Benedict Arnold and Ethan Allen captured British forts at Ticonderoga and Crown Point, and also took possession of their garrisons, their artillery, and their gunpowder stockpiles. In June, Americans used those captured weapons against the British forces at the Battle of Bunker Hill. General Gage, Britain's commander in Boston, had received troop reinforcements and 3 talented generals along with it to assist him. Their names were William Howe, John Burgoyne, and Henry Clinton. Gage ordered a frontal assault by nearly 3,000 troops against 1,500 Americans that were at the top of Bunker Hill. Actually, the name of the hill was Breed's Hill, so the battle is misnamed Bunker Hill. But that's going to be, but the fact that Gage is going to try to go up the hill against the American fire is going to be a blunder that costs him very dearly. The Battle of Bunker Hill is one of the bloodiest engagements of the Revolutionary War. It actually ends in a British victory after 3 assaults. The British try to go up the hill 3 times, and the Americans are forced to retreat on the 3rd try after running out of ammunition. But 800 British soldiers are wounded, while only 271 patriots are wounded, 140 were dead, and 30 were captured. In July, Congress drafted the Olive Branch Petition, which was an appeal affirming American loyalty and blaming both Parliament and the King's ministers for the problems. The Olive Branch Petition proposed that the colonies that be recognized as individual parliaments within the greater framework of the empire and monarchy. King George rejected the Olive Branch Petition when he received it and condemned the Americans as traitors and rebels, which made reconciliation out of the question. In August of 1775, George III declared the American colonies in open rebellion and accused its supporters of treason, which was an offense punishable by hanging. Then in September, he authorized the hiring of thousands of German mercenaries, which were called Hessians, to help put down the rebellion. So princes in 6 German principalities agreed to the deal because they needed the money. The king's action shocked the Americans and widened the political separation between England and the colonies. As the war progressed, many of these Hessians defected to the Patriot cause, lured by the promises of land and a better life. In January of 1776, Thomas Paine published his pamphlet called Common Sense in the Colonies, which presented compelling arguments for complete independence from England. In it, he elaborated on the contradictions and absurdities of England's monarchy. Paine specifically attacked the ideas that one man, by accident of birth, should wield so much power over others, and that England's constitution served the interests of all of English subjects. He advocated replacing the monarchy with a republican form of government, which was based on representative government by the consent of the governed and frequent elections. Common Sense sold 150,000 copies and increased public pressure for independence. Proportional figures today, based on population, would have made it a bestseller. Another factor that influenced Americans towards independence was the prospect of an alliance with France, which was England's rival. France was willing to provide covert military aid, including naval power, on condition that the Americans separate from England. So the king's decision to hire German mercenaries also factored into the American decision to separate. On July 2nd, 1776, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia introduced a resolution in the Second Continental Congress calling for independence. The Congress then appointed a committee headed by Thomas Jefferson to draft a more formal statement of Lee's resolution, which called for independence. On July 4th, 1776, he completed the Declaration of Independence, and it was presented and adopted by Congress. The Declaration of Independence contained a preamble delineating philosophical principles of equality, natural rights, the right of revolution, and the principle of consent of the governed in support of the American cause. The Declaration also contained a listing of more than 24 grievances against King George. After its adoption, printed copies were sent to all 13 colonies without the signatures, because if the signatures had been found on the document, that would have been proof of a treasonous act. We'll look at the different parts of the Declaration of Independence more clearly in detail in class.